Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila Goswami, Volume 4, in every town and village around the world, 1968 to 1971. Chapter 32nd, India, Dancing White Elephants. So, it was 1 a.m. So, it was in Calcutta when Prabhupada had arrived and devotees wanted to feed him at even in mid of the night. And Prabhupada asked, he took little and asked the disciples to eat sumptuously. It was 1 a.m. Prabhupada sat in his room with Achyutananda, Jayapataka, and Devanand Maharaj. He explained how irresponsible letters from his disciples in India had perpetuated within ISKCON a deep misunderstanding of the spiritual master's position. He quoted the words Sakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastra and explained the Guru is on an equal level with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not God, but he is a dearmost servant of God. Prabhupada continued preaching to his disciples, clearing away any misconceptions about the spiritual master's position. All the past unpleasant events, he said, were now being rectified. The devotees should continue working together with new life and vigor. Achyutananda asked Prabhupada if he could take sannyas. The Indians, he said, would respect a sannyasi more. Prabhupada agreed that sannyas would help Achyutananda's preaching. And he said that Jayapatak should also take sannyas. The ceremony would be in a week on Radhashtami. The Amrit Bazar Patrika carried a front page news story of Prabhupada's arrival. A photo showed Prabhupada walking with his hand in his bead bag, surrounded by young sannyasis carrying dandas. Many VIPs have come to Dum Dum Airport before, but never have we seen gaiety and celebrations of this magnitude. It was difficult to imagine that he was 75 years old because he was completely fresh after this long journey. With a little smile on his face, he blessed one and all with the words, Haribo. Prabhupada wrote to the devotees in Japan. In India, from the very moment we stepped down from the airplane, there is good propaganda work going on. The boy Bruce is improving and becoming more interested. He has now sacrificed his hairs for Krishna. That is a good sign. Calcutta was in political turmoil. A group of communist terrorists, the Naxalites, had been rioting, murdering prominent businessmen and threatening the lives of many others. Many wealthy Marwadi industrialists were leaving the city for Delhi and Bombay. Aside from the terrorists, Bengali college students were going unruly. But the older people of West Bengal, comprising most of Prabhupada's visitors, were alarmed by the violence and unrest. The only shelter Prabhupada told them was Krishna. People are in very much perturbed condition. All of them are expecting me to do something for ameliorating the situation, but I'm simply advising them to chant Hare Krishna, because this transcendental sound is the only panacea for all material diseases. Prabhupada saw no need to fabricate a special program for the social problems of Calcutta. Chanting Hare Krishna was the only panacea for all material diseases. The question was how best to use his American disciples to give this panacea to the Indians. Prabhupada had his party of 10 devotees and he had asked his leaders in the West for 20 more within the month. Means send 20 more devotees. He had ordered $60,000 worth of books and magazines from Dai Nippon, and his sannyasis were going daily into the streets to perform kirtan. The Sankirtan party was getting a good response. Shaven-headed Westerners wearing shikhas, Vaishnav tilak, and saffron robes, playing kartals and mridangas, chanting Hare Krishna with heart and soul, quoting Sanskrit verses from Bhagavad Gita, affirming Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the Bengalis, this was sensational, and hundreds would gather to watch. Prabhupada knew the great appeal his disciples would have. Everyone would want to see them. he therefore affectionately called them is dancing white elephants. So dancing white elephants, this term comes from West. So why dancing white elephants? First, the white elephants are very rare. For white elephants are very expensive also. Expensive to procure them, expensive to maintain them. And Prabhupada's disciples from America, they were white in color, skin. So in a way they were rare and um, expensive to maintain, in the sense they have their own way of living. And dancing white elephants, and that would also attract Indians a lot, and did attract a lot. And especially not just dancing, they were also quoting Sanskrit verses, preaching. So Indians were very convinced, attracted to that. They are speaking our script on our scriptures. Actually, this is what happened with me also when I first started going to Dallas Temple. I didn't know much, had never read Bhagavad Gita. And once one family invited me to their house. Mataji was Indian body, but Prabhuji was American. And I had some questions. So Mataji said, okay, you can ask Prabhuji. He's in the moment for a long time. So I sat with him in the living room, and Prabhuji had Bhagavad Gita in his hand, and he was quoting verses from Bhagavad Gita. I was looking at his face, looking at Bhagavad Gita, and I was kind of ashamed of myself. I never even touched Bhagavad Gita, forget about reading them. And that really motivated me that I should also read Bhagavad Gita, not out of envy or anything. It just I said, why I haven't even touched Bhagavad Gita yet? So many Indians might have also felt the same way when they saw these devotees doing Sankirtan in Calcutta. These same devotees who had grown to love chanting Hare Krishna in the streets of San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York were now going into an exhausting heat never encountered in America and chanting on Dalhousie Square for several hours daily. Crowds would press in closely, sometimes teasing, laughing, or scoffing, but more often looking on with deep amazement. Prabhupada's idea was that when Indians saw young Western people adopting the principles of Krishna consciousness, the faith of the Indians in their own culture would increase. Prabhupada explained to his disciples how formerly, during the time of Maharaj Yudhishthira, India had been a Krishna conscious state, or the country. For the last 1,000 years, however, India had been under foreign subjugation, first under the Mughals and then under the British. As a result, the intelligentsia and to a lesser degree the masses of India had lost respect for their own culture. They were now pursuing the materialistic goals of the West, and they saw this as more productive and more practical than religion, which was only sentimental. Westerners living as renounced Vaishnavas could, as Prabhupada was well aware, turn the heads and hearts of the Indians and help them regain faith in their own lost culture. It was not a material tactic, however, but a spiritual strength. Prabhupada stressed that devotees must be pure in their actions. This purity would be their force. So purity would be the force. I don't know, in India it is popular, or maybe you know or not. In America it is very popular. When we go to a Chinese restaurant, so after eating there, they always give, with the bill, they give a Chinese cookie. It's nothing, it's just a cookie, biscuit, but when you break it open, there's always a paper inside, slip inside, and it has some nice quote or something written. And people like it, oh, I got this quotation and I got that. So once one devotee got this Chinese cookie and he opened it, and there's a slip inside. And it said, purity is a force. No, utility is a principle, purity is a force. And then I think it was added later on by the devotees. Utility is a principle, books are the basis, uh, purity is a force, preaching is the essence. So that become like a slogan for ISKCON. So purity is a force. Purity in our actions, in our thoughts, in our dealings. Then it becomes like attractive to others. If that purity is missing, no matter how much we preach by our words, it will not help anybody. It will not attract people or not attract the right kind of people to Krishna consciousness. So got to be very careful. The chanting in Dalhousie Square and along Chaurangi Lane had gone on for about 10 days when Prabhupada decided to stop it. The street kirtan, although an excellent method of preaching, was not the most effective method for India, he said. There were many professional kirtan groups in Bengal, and Prabhupada didn't want his disciples to be seen like that, as professional performers or beggars. He wanted them to preach in a way that would bring them closer to the more intelligent, respectable Indians, and he unfolded his new plan. He called it life membership. So that is when life membership started. His disciples would invite Indians interested in supporting and associating with ISKCON to become members. A membership fee of 1,111 rupees would entitle the member to many benefits, such as copies of Srila Prabhupada's books and free accommodation in ISKCON centers around the world. So this, of course, Prabhupada started everything with a clean heart, with really want to uh, make sure that whatever he is offering should be available. But somehow, it's a good program, but we have failed to offer whatever we promise. Like when I became life member, it was in India, 1996, I believe. I did not get a copy of Prabhupada's books and forget about free accommodation, even at that time, did not get. Now it is forget it. Nobody gets free accommodation. And around the world, there are no guest houses or very limited number of temples have guest rooms that they can offer. So it kind of hurts the ISKCON's image when they sell things like this and then they cannot offer. Speaking one evening in a private home before a group of wealthy businessmen, Prabhupada initiated his life membership program. After lecturing, he invited his audience to become ISKCON life members, and several Calcutta merchants immediately signed. B.L. Jaju. I was really overwhelmed by the simplicity of Prabhupada's nature. He told me how he had been carrying on his regular business when his guru had told him that 400 years back, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had said that Hare Rama, Hare Krishna would be chanted all throughout the world. He said that was the job given to him by his spiritual master and that he would have to go to America and do it. I found no snobbery in him. Man, he wasn't snobbish or condescending for everyone. He was very simple, and he was telling, as if my brother was telling to me, simply how he went to USA, how he started, and how gradually he planned to have this Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Seeing his disciples who had changed their lives, I began to think, why not I? In my humble way, I should do something without worrying what other people are doing. I found that imperceptibly he was affecting my life. My wife and even my son were really surprised when they found that these white people, whom we thought could never turn to Krishna consciousness, had changed so much. So we thought we must also try to follow better the teachings of the Gita. Whether at a life member's home, at a formal lecture before a large audience, or in his own room, Prabhupada continued speaking from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Of this he never tired. Guests would ask a question, and Prabhupada would begin his answer by having one of his disciples read a relevant verse from the Gita. Then he would explain it. If the guest was unsubmissive and wanted to challenge, Prabhupada would argue. Sitting at his low desk, occasionally drinking water from his lota, Prabhupada would talk hour after hour. The temperature rose to 100 degrees. And as 100 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. And as Prabhupada sat in his room preaching, he wore no shirt, only a simple top cloth, which left his arms, shoulders, and part of his chest bare. Sometimes the devotees sitting with him would be sick or sleepy or otherwise inattentive, and sometimes they would excuse themselves, returning hours later to find him still preaching. Guests also came and went. Yet, except for a nap after lunch, Prabhupada kept preaching, often throughout the day and into the night. Never bored with his subject matter, he would speak as long as there was an interested hearer. His audiences varied. Sometimes he would speak to a room of husbands and wives, all cultured and well-dressed. And sometimes he would speak to one lone old man. Sometimes his audience listened quietly or argued, or even when appreciating, showed their misunderstanding. Sometimes a guest would ask him why he criticized Bengal's reputed saints and politicians. And he would explain on the basis of Bhagavad Gita that the real sadhu always glorifies Krishna. So another strong point of Prabhupada was he would always quote Bhagavad Gita or other scriptures. And not like he would say, I think, I believe. No. It was always on the basis of scriptures. Prabhupada often related his preaching to events of particular interest to his audience, such as Calcutta's political unrest or the downfall of Vedic culture. Yet his concern for local affairs was only the practical necessity of the moment, for he was beyond India. He was thinking of people, places, and activities all around the world. In answering his letters, he would deeply ponder matters in England, Australia, Hawaii, or New Vrindavan. And beyond this, he would always be thinking of Krishna. He wanted to glorify Krishna throughout the world. India happened to be his present field. The devotees in India had the privilege of closely observing Prabhupada in his preaching. His superior tolerance and kindness both inspired them and by contrast exposed to them their own inadequacies. As newcomers to India, the devotees were still greatly involved with the practical affairs of living in Calcutta. Weather, disease, and culture shock distracted their minds from Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada's presence, his preaching, and his example reminded them that reality was beyond the body. Sometimes the devotees criticized certain of Prabhupada's visitors. They met Indians who sat with Prabhupada and presented a facade of godliness, but who later smoked cigarettes and showed other signs of low character. Once a group of devotees complained to Prabhupada about these hypocritical Indians, but Prabhupada told them the story of the bee and the fly. The bee, he explained, always looks for honey, and the fly for a nasty sore or infection. The devotees should be like the honeybee and see the good in others, not like the fly looking for the faults. But we always look at the faults of others, shortcomings of others, because that makes us feel that I am better than them. But the real devotee has to be very, very humble. He should look at good qualities of others and see only bad qualities in him. But as a preacher, yes, we have to make the distinction. But the mood should be to become humble, very, very humble. It's difficult. It's not easy. Prabhupada's disciples discovered that the best way to learn to live in India was to follow exactly what Prabhupada did. When taking prasadam with him at someone's home, they would eat the same food as he and in the same order. When he would finish, they would finish. And when he would wash his hands, they would wash. Life in India was strange, even bewildering, and Prabhupada's disciples did not have proper vision of his mission in India. But they were following him like little ducks wherever he went. As the devotees came closer to Prabhupada and witnessed more of his unique qualities, they came to love him more than ever. Sitting in his room on a white cushion and leaning back on the white bolster, Prabhupada appeared golden hued and regal despite his simple surroundings. The devotees could see that he was unaffected by his surroundings, whether in Los Angeles, where he had lived comfortably amid opulence, or in Calcutta. He was at home in India. But he was not just another Indian, not even just another Indian sadhu. He was unique, and he was unique, and he was theirs. So that's Prabhupada. I guess we can stop here. See anybody with any questions or comments? Okay, we all have safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.